Internet.
Live from Heinsberg and Catskill, it's BlogChat.
Welcome to Tuesday with Lance Kymick,
Lance Kymick, and
Matt Hill, the guy with the Band-Aid on his finger. Yeah.
Otherwise known as the click and clack of night photography.
That's right. You got to have that guttural. Wait, you're in Vermont, so you're even more clicky than clack, right? It's a New England public radio thing.
Yes, well, you're on the fringes, right?
Yeah, I did grow up listening to it, so I get the reference.
Yeah. Well, hey, it wasn't my idea. It was Suzanne from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Who initially coined the phrase "the click and clack of night photography."
Thank you, Suzanne.
Is she in our audience tonight?
No, I think we just went down to zero because we didn't talk about night photography. Thanks for leaving. Hey, good to see y'all. All right. Woo.
Okay, well.
So, audience of us tonight.
Oh, okay.
No, it doesn't matter because the people that are watching this, on their own time, they're going to be like, it's an audience of me. You shouldn't leave me out. Don't get so meta. So Lance, you had a really wonderful blog post back in the day. We wanted to come back and revisit it. It was a look through the years, how night photography has changed and how it hasn't. And I want to linger on this photograph as we start to broach the topic. I love your gravel pit and sand pit photographs. They're so delicious. I have one of them on my walls. And someday I hope to have a print of this one too. This is got to be one of my favorite photographs of yours.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it's a good place to kick off. And obviously you put it in the blog post for a reason, talking about how night photography has and hasn't changed. So where would you like to lead us tonight? Now it's a little bit after you've written the blog post. How do you feel today about this topic?
Well, it's interesting. The one thing when I was reviewing this blog post that came up, and something that has actually fairly recently changed, is that especially we've been doing this for a long time, right? So in the earlier days of night photography, people were accused of being crazy for trying to take pictures at night because everybody knew you couldn't do that. But when we first started doing it, there was a little bit of, hey, you can't do that. But then 9/11 happened, and it was like, hey, you must be a terrorist because you're trying to take pictures at night. And there was lots of security and police interest in, anytime that I went out, I even had.
I remember that. I totally remember that.
Yeah. Oh man, go try taking a picture of a bridge in 2002. You were like,
I was in Jersey and I had a Mamiya 635 AF, and I drove down to one of the most beautiful oil refineries. It's near Elizabeth, and you have to take an exit off of think it was like Route 1 and stop on the off ramp to get a really good shot of this. And I set up this film camera, this medium format film camera, and shot through a chain link fence, and I ripped off 3 exposures before I saw vehicles I didn't want to see in the distance coming towards us pretty fast. So I know exactly how you feel.
Right. But anyway, what I was going to bring up was that with the increased commonness of night photography, the increased accessibility, where almost anybody can make a night image, and you see night images in advertising and all over the place. They're ubiquitous now. The cops have finally gotten the message that photographers and terrorists are not the same thing. The equal sign has a bar through it now. So,
thank goodness.
Yes, thank goodness. But it took a while.
That's change number 1.
That's for the better.
Yeah.
But the other things that what originally kind of inspired me to write this post were night photography techniques that were discovered really early on in the history of the medium, and that they're still useful and still apply today. And so if do we you have that George Tice image up there somewhere? Can we see that? Yeah, there we go. So the photographer laureate of New Jersey is George Tice, and for the collectors of his work and fans of night photography, this is probably his most famous image. It's a Pettit's mobile station outside Cherry Hill, New Jersey in 1974. You can still see this water tower driving up and down 95. But anyway, it's a remarkable image. If you ever get a chance to see an original print of this, you'll be just kind of dumbfounded by the subtlety of the tones in the water tower, the shadows. It's just gorgeous. But so this was a 10-minute exposure on an 8x10 sheet of film, Tri-X to be specific. And it took him an hour to make the one exposure because he had to keep covering the lens every time a car pulled into the gas station to fill up. And that's you've covered the lens when something goes in front of your camera, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
to spend an hour to get 10 minutes of total exposure, that's
Well,
a great story.
Well, it's worth it for the signature image of your whole career, right?
Hell yes.
Yeah. But, so yeah, I mean, imagine, for people who've never seen an 8x10 camera, let alone shot with one, it is, it's enormous. It's bigger than a bread box. It's almost as big as my printer back here, balanced on a tripod, and it's got a big leather bellows that is floppy and moves with the slightest provocation, like a half a mile an hour gust of wind or a gust of breeze. Working with large format, an 8x10 camera means that the piece of film is 8x10 inches. And that degree of enlargement, it shows every tiny little imperfection. If you were just the slightest bit out of alignment or out of focus, or the slightest little bit of movement, it just ruins everything. So I don't know how many different exposures he made, or if it was only the one sheet of film, but just doing something, covering the lens over and over again and revealing it during an hour-long exposure is just, it's requires incredible patience and carefulness and dexterity.
There's zero camera shake here. That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a win.
But I mentioned this one just because of love the image, but this is a technique that went all the way back to the 1890s with the Victorian England photographer Paul Martin.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the first people who really seriously started pursuing night photography or street photography at night. And the aforementioned police were always coming up to him and wanting to escort him back to the loony bin because, everybody knew that he couldn't take pictures at night. So after having several sheets of film ruined by policemen walking up with the lantern, he said, "Hey, wait a minute." And he took off his hat and covered the lens and explained himself to the cop. And after their little chat, he would uncover it and then finish the rest of his exposure. Yeah. So this is something that was figured out, way back in the 1890s that we still do today. So hopefully not for police, interrogations, but more for cars or whatever, airplanes going through the frame, something like that. So I don't know.
Wow. So do you still use this technique today? Right?
Yeah.
What's an instance of where you would cover up your lens?
If I'm in an urban environment and there's a car about to pass in front of the lens, in front of the camera,
Someone with a headlamp, perhaps.
yeah, right. A student on a workshop with a headlamp. You know, that if you were to do this to keep an airplane from passing through your frame, that would leave gaps in your star trails. You know, because it'll take, depending on how wide your lens is, it takes a minute or two for a plane to cross all the way through your frame. So it's not a foolproof technique that doesn't work in every situation, but it's definitely something that's useful and we've done before, still do. So
Wow. So that's I keep getting lost in that George Tice image. I'm sorry. I gotta move on.
yeah.
So deliberation was the next topic that you covered in the blog post.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
And this is something that at times I think I've gotten over it, but at times I've kind of missed the anticipation of waiting for the film to be souped, the excitement of spending a whole night shooting for 6 hours and having no idea if I got anything at all that was usable, right?
I mean, that's part of the reason that I started using my Vivitar 283. I could rely on either the thyristor in that flash or the flash meter to know that I was exposing something correctly with one pop of the flash. So that was one way that I brought some certainty to that era of uncertainty.
Yeah, flash is certainly a more consistent form of lighting or light painting than flashlight, to be sure.
No.
Very different quality of light too, right?
Yeah, and I love to blend it. I love to use ambient light sources and flash together. I got hooked on that really quickly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, of course, these days you get instant feedback. I don't, I think if Minor White were still around and still teaching, he would tell people to turn off their image preview and just shoot without looking at it. We should do that in a workshop.
I think that's a fun idea. See how uncomfortable people get just shooting for just an hour without looking. Just 1 hour.
I think
our challenge to you guys: when you guys go out this weekend, tonight, whatever, spend a whole hour shooting without chimping.
Not even the first shot. Yeah.
You have to reach into your brain and pull out some knowledge that you have that's just sitting there waiting for you to exercise it. Those synapses want to be connected. Wait, when have I encountered this situation before? What settings did I use? All right, I'm going to use those.
Right. So, you've got to get first the composition the way you want it. That's the easiest part, right?
Yep.
It's not so easy on an 8x10 view camera, but in the dark with an f11 lens.
True. That's why you focus at sunset. Right. And don't move.
So you got to get the composition.
Yeah.
Then you got to get the focus right.
Yeah.
Then you got to get the exposure right. Then you got to get the light painting right, all in the same shot. And then back in the day, you had to do a good job developing your film and not letting your highlights be blown out or having your shadows be underdeveloped.
Night photography used to be a really bloodied badge of honor. If you were good at it, you sweat and you bled for it. You had to want it. Yeah.
But back then the only people who appreciated the challenges of it were the people who did it, right?
Cuckoo birds. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I've shown you a lot of my early work. We'll have to make that a discussion.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fun to pull out archives from all our early attempts at night photography.
That would be fun. That, you know what? That's yes. We're going to do that. We might not make it a blog post first. Maybe we'll just share it. I don't know. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I really love this part of it, the deliberation part. You've given me memories of what it was like to just want to go out and walk forward, so to speak, metaphorically, walk forward without looking back during the night. Like, I'm going to make this thing. I'm going to do that thing. I hope it worked. What's the next thing I'm going to try?
Hmm.
And there was something thrilling about it. And of course, yeah, the anticipation. I want to play a GIF of Frankenfurter right now. The anticipation, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you, when you shoot film or when you shot film, did you do insurance shots?
I didn't. I don't think I bought insurance for a long time in my life. No, uh, tell me how you did insurance shots, and I'll tell you whether I did that.
Um, well, I would do
Bracketing?
a well, it's some shots called for exposure bracketing, some called for lighting bracketing, um, and but usually, um, after I felt like I got it, I would just do one more and try to repeat exactly the same thing. Just,
Mm-hmm.
in case there was like a little piece of dirt on the film when it got developed, or an
Oh,
airplane that I
nice.
didn't
Yeah.
see, or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yes. Yes, I did do insurance shots. But I think instead of repeating exactly what I did, I tried something even riskier.
Hmm.
My insurance shots were actually envelope pushing. I'm like, okay, that felt right. Now what can I do that's absolutely out of this world crazy?
You're so edgy.
I don't know. I'm me. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's cool.
Hmm.
All right. So,
Chimping. I mean, I have a funny story. Like the whole chimping thing. Back in the day, I worked for Seconic, and I pitched them on a campaign where we would make little stickers, static cling stickers to put on the back of everybody's LCDs back in the birth of digital, that said no chimping. It had like a circle with a line through it and a chimp in it, and like no chimping, and the Seconic logo. They never bought the idea from me.
oh, that's too bad. That's too bad.
But I really, really wanted to do it. And I thought it would really take off like wildfire. It'd be like, okay, you got to know what you're exposing. Like, maybe there's an opportunity here. We just like,
Hmm.
yeah.
But we do have a relationship with a sticker company.
We do. Those are permanent though. Maybe they make static clings.
They they probably do. They make the ones for sides of automobiles, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are magnets too.
No, there's
Static cling. We'll
static
do
ones.
that. Yeah. Maybe you can all just use gaff tape, and then with like white paint marker, like you're going out and tagging something. It's like no chimping.
So what would be the advantage of no chimping?
The advantage of no chimping is knowing your shots, knowing your tools, knowing your techniques, and having the confidence to execute them with the authority of experience that you earned, which means writing down. This is what it meant to me back in the day. Writing down what you did, referring to it when you get to the second part of the cycle, which is when the images are developed. And then the third part is bringing back some of that knowledge to the next shoot. So it's this virtuous cycle of training yourself to remember what can get you out of certain situations, or what problem solving tactics you would employ when faced with certain scenarios.
Yeah, that's great. Notes. Remember taking notes. Exposure notes.
Oh, EXIF data. Yeah.
Right. Manual EXIF data. That's right.
Manual EXIF data. Justification.
So maybe we really are the click and clack of night photography. A couple of old coots sitting back reminiscing about days of yore.
I remember when I used a pencil to take pictures.
I remember when my tripod was made out of wood.
I got 2 of those right over there. The Burla box. Yeah, and I have the, no, forget it. Moving on. Yeah, click and clack. There we go. We're going to have a brain scrambler at the end of this, you know, and everybody has to tell us how they solved it during the next blog chat. Okay. Your next topic that you broached on the blog post, using that as a roadmap for where we're going, is
that's right.
Justification.
Right. So, yeah, and what are we talking about here? Explaining to people. What I mentioned in here. In addition to the aforementioned people questioning sanity or the ability to actually take pictures in the dark,
mm-hmm.
one of the more popular queries that we got: are you guys ghost hunters?
Well, yes.
Why, yes, we are.
Well, yes, we are.
Yeah. So I am totally serious. This has happened in multiple locations and over multiple experiences, and not just in graveyards. But I have been known to wander dark and lonely graveyards in the middle of the night with a camera.
I thought you were going to say in the buff. Oh.
No, that's you, Matt.
I don't get naked.
Yes.
Next topic, gear. So the technology's changed a little bit, huh?
Yes. Well, that's rather obvious, and that's the thing that has certainly changed the most. You know, we still use a tripod, a camera, and a lens. Sometimes we use one of them newfangled intervalometers, which is really just a cable release.
With a clock.
With a clock, yeah. Our media has changed, of course, and continues to change, become less expensive. So I've run into a number of people who treat memory cards like a roll of film. Shoot it once, put it in a drawer somewhere, and just keep it. So, with it seems like a weird way to do backups, right?
I get it. No, I get it. I mean, I know a bunch of people who are video professionals that use spinny hard drives because they're cheap as their backup solution. They put them in a fire safe. That's how they archive their video projects, because it's terabytes of data per project. So
right.
I get it. And it's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is another conversation altogether. I don't know if we want to go this deep, but the graph of like the actual cost of making photography going down, and the actual like perceived value of photography and the time it takes to do it,
also
and
going down.
their relationship to each other. But the volume of photography just going up with it. And I mean, I used to talk about it as in terms of photography has become a commodity, but that's assigning a fiscal value to it, right? The word commodity, it denotes money, but it's more like photography is no longer so specialized that only the people who are willing to go through the pain and the fiscal investment to get all of that gear and the time to learn it will do it. The photography is in the hands of everyone now. Even somebody with a decent smartphone can make night photography, and that's truly extraordinary. And in a lot of ways, it's just really liberating, and it's wonderful there's that many people that can chase the long exposure. I'm excited about that. I'm glad that more people can experience it. And I'm glad that technology pushes what we can do forward, because we weren't dreaming about these stacking star points even 10 years ago, were we?
Right. No. And we certainly weren't dreaming about taking pictures of the Milky Way with our phones.
Precisely.
But you know what, the other side of that coin, and I'm grateful for this, is that You know, we've talked to other night photographers who don't like this advance of technology that you can take a picture, you know, under the moon with your phone, because they see it as a threat to what we do. But on the other hand, it's the gateway drug,
Mhm.
you know, because it's, you can do it, and it looks okay on the phone, but the minute you look at it on a, you know, a big screen or try to print it, yeah, it's not there. So it lights the fire and gets people excited to go out and try it with a quote unquote proper camera.
Truth, absolute truth. And I'm with you on that. It's not about competition. It's not about a lowering of any standards or things getting crowded. It's come on in. The water's fine. Everybody, let's do some night photography. It's fantastic. I'm glad you're here. Um, you have an opportunity to play with creativity in a way that you can't in daytime. There's just a whole bunch of things that are possible with night photography or long exposure photography, and that's why I keep coming back to it for decades, because it's just, to me, I find it uh, more challenging, more unlimited possibility to do things that are creative. So here we are. We've got one question that I think we should answer.
Oh, sure.
I bet you're gonna have a different answer than me. Katrina asked, "What are your favorite vintage Nikon lenses?"
Depends how vintage, but the no-brainer for me on that one is the 28-35 PC Nikkor shift lens. That is just rock solid architectural lens, and the 28 is just, I love that focal length. So that would be it. And you can still pick them up on eBay, of course.
I had two that I really loved, and they're wildly different lenses. The 105 f4, I think it was. That one, just buttery. It was like a really small barrel, had a metal lens with it you could pull out. It was one of my favorite portrait lenses, but also like detail lenses for at night. It got stolen when my kit got stolen in San Francisco. And then there was a 21.4, a 20 millimeter 1.4. It was just like, it was a pancake of a lens, but it was pretty sharp, especially at 2.8. So that was my two favorite, my wide and my medium telly. Good question, Katrina.
Yeah, and I think when I met Katrina, I was probably still a Canon shooter. And I used, you know, I went from Canon film cameras to Canon to a 5D and a 5D Mark II after that. And, you know, I bought that lens to put it on the front of my 5D with an adapter.
Nice.
So that,
Nice.
but I still use it today. Now that I'm actually shooting Nikon, I still use that. And that's one of the lenses that's, you know, almost always in my bag too.
Oh, we just got another good question that leads into the next part of the blog post.
All
I want to thank you, Barry White. Thank you for this question. Do you use light pollution filters, and what do you think of them?
Oh,
let's press pause on that and talk about color. I think you have some really great examples in the blog post, and then we could talk about when we control color and when we embrace it, and you know how technology affects that. So these two images, talk me through these.
Yeah.
These gorgeous.
All right. Well, these are circa 1995. One is shot in an agricultural facility in Petaluma, which is where lots of eggs are. This was not an egg factory, but anyway. And the other one was at Southern Pacific Railway in Oakland. And both of them feature a combination of mixed lighting, sodium vapor light, which is the orangish color, and then mercury vapor light, which is the greenish color. And when you shoot film, you have, well, our white balance was daylight or tungsten, and you couldn't really do much modification outside of printing. When you're doing your color printing, you could balance for one color or another. And then the sky would kind of go with whichever we're doing. So in both of these images, the ambient light source was dramatically affecting the sky. So, yeah, there you go. This, the sky is reflecting, especially in a cloudy sky or an overcast sky, it reflects whatever light, accumulative light, is in the area and bounces it back down. And that's actually the thing that really drew me to color night photography, was mixed lighting and crazy colors. These are obviously 95. They're both film images. There's no filtration in front of the lens. There's no light painting with colored filters. This is just the ambient lighting and the way it reacted to the long exposures on the film and the two different sources and their interpretations of the way that I chose to print them. But to kind of try to bring it around to Barry's question, the long way to Barry's question is light pollution, to me anyway, is not always a bad thing. It's, I mean, in the greater sense of the world, yeah, it would be great to preserve the dark skies, but in photography, it can be a blessing. Some of the examples, Joshua Tree. We've gotten some amazing skies in Joshua Tree with light pollution from Palm Springs. And even in Badwater Basin in Death Valley, one of the darkest parks, if you're looking to the south in Badwater Basin, you get some light pollution on the horizon that creates really interesting colors.
There's Joshua Tree.
Right. And so that light on the horizon is Palm Springs in the distance. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm looking for other ones. Yeah.
Yeah. The rhyolite image is another example. There's some light pollution in there for sure.
Okay. I'm having fun looking through this. There's Joshua Tree again.
Yeah.
I don't go to this gallery enough. This is fun.
We need to update that gallery, I think.
Wow. Okay. So, I'm going to get lost in there.
All right. Well, talk about light pollution filters for a second. I'm going to step back and come back in just a second. I want to pull something back.
Sure. So this is Barry, to answer your question. I am gearing up to do a comprehensive test on light pollution filters. I have the IRIX in hand, I have the Benro in hand, and I'm working on through B&H and other sources, trying to get them all in one place at one time to do a light pollution filter shootout, so that we get everything done and shoot it under a couple of different circumstances. And then this is going to be the twist. There's going to be a blind judging amongst the three of the other guys to look at these and evaluate them from a non-knowledge of which filter was which shot with a neutral processing on it. So we're going to have an opinion about them soon that's comparative and data-based, and also somewhat subjective, which plays in both of them. The science behind it is pretty simple. Any filter that you put in front of something that has a color, it's just going to subtract that. So what they're trying to do is target specific wavelengths for specific kinds of light. Right. And no one filter can cover all forms of light pollution. And that's the part that really that bothers me about the descriptions of these is I think they're sometimes they're not specific enough about the wavelengths. And then you need to learn a lot more about light sources and what wavelengths they could possibly be, and whether the bulb is old or new, or like the lens is dirty. There's a lot of factors in this as to whether light pollution filter is actually going to do something that you find congenial. So
Yeah, and like I was saying a minute ago, whatever pollution is in the sky is the cumulative collection of all the lights lighting up the sky. So, it's not necessarily that it's they're going to nail it with a narrow wavelength of filtering out just sodium vapor or mercury vapor, whatever. And here's a kind of an ironic and interesting thing about these filters is that the technology for them they has just come out in the last 5 years or so, right? What else has happened to lighting in the last couple of years?
Everything's turning into basically warm or white LEDs that are mostly downcast in all urban and rural areas.
And generally have a pretty pretty neutral color balance without the extreme color shifts of the metal halide or mercury or sodium vapor lights or fluorescent lights or anything
It's a
else.
little late. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Especially if you're asking $200 or $300 for a filter.
Right. And that's the interesting thing is like most of the time with these filters at night, this is the other, like the physical thing. You probably don't want to spend time screwing a filter in or unscrewing a filter. So you're probably going to go for something that's like, a drop-in filter. And then you have to carry that filter holder around, but this is what we're talking about here. So you're going to have to carry a glass or a resin filter around, and glass,
That looks like the old 30 magenta for fluorescent lights.
You think so? I could be on Dragon Ball Z. No. Anybody who gets that, leave a comment.
I won't be leaving a comment, but I do want to bring this, and I apologize for the glare. So this is I
didn't get to see that yet.
A 20 by 30 print, metal print that Matt shot at Teddy Roosevelt National Park, and I apologize for the glare on it from the lighting in the room here, but I wanted to pull this off the wall and show it because this lighting in the sky here and in the clouds is
light pollution.
Yeah,
I think it's from the oil fields nearby.
So
we're looking at that, yeah.
I wish you could. That's actually a bit better. You can see.
Wow.
It looks
I gotta make one of those for myself.
Yeah, it looks awesome, Matt.
Wow. Okay, cool. Those are a great question, Barry. Stay tuned. The reason this blog post we've been dreaming about this blog post for a while. The reason it hasn't come to fruition yet is that I just want to do it right. And I guess the longer I wait, the less relevant it becomes. Didn't Lightroom just come out with some more additions to the local adjustments that sort of make it even less relevant?
That's right. Yeah, you can. There's now what I find to be very useful hue adjustment in the local adjustment tools for the latest edition of Lightroom that came out just 2 weeks ago or so. So, and the first thing that I tried it on, the first thing I did with it was to change the hue of a sky that had a lot of light pollution without affecting the rest of the image. So I was able to make it was an urban scene. I don't have it ready wasn't planning to talk about it, so I can't pull it up, but an urban scene in Lowell, Massachusetts, Milltown. So a lot of old mill buildings and smokestacks. And I like the lighting on the foreground, but I just wanted to see what I could do to change the light in the sky. And in the shot, the way I had developed it, it was kind of magenta. And I made a selection of the sky. I used the range mask to eliminate the buildings and the smokestacks that were sticking up into the sky. And just with that hue slider, completely eliminated that magenta and made it a natural looking blue sky. So it worked beautifully on the first try. It was really easy to do. Maybe it was that I picked out a good image to demo it with, but
maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know.
So I don't know.
Your last point in the blog post is a good one. And you said it's something that hasn't changed and will never change. You touched on it lightly before, but now let's really drive this one home.
Design and composition, you know, absolutely. Good design is always good design. You know, trends and styles come and go, but taking a three-dimensional reality and transforming it or compressing it, reducing it, putting a box around it and saying, this is what I'm going to include, this is what I'm going to exclude. That's, you know, that's vision, right? You know, that's your way of seeing.
Indeed.
And whether it's something that comes naturally or you work at for years and years to make it, to develop that vision, you know, good design and good composition is classic, and you know, it's always going to stand out.
I think there's a third class of image. You know, there's a banger, and then there's a wall banger, which you would put. A banger's one, it's a keeper photo. There's a wall banger, which you'd print and put on your wall. Now this is a book banger. I just coined it. It's your book cover, right?
Yeah, first edition. Yeah. Well, if I could turn my camera, there's a 30 by 40 print of that image on the wall over there.
Must be a sight to see.
Yeah.
Tell me the story of this. Did you craft all of the lighting in this? Part of the lighting or none of it?
None of it. It's existing.
Get out.
Yeah. This is
you just saw it.
This is the simmer dim, you know, that endless summer twilight in the northern latitudes, shot in Orkney in Scotland, little fishing village. And it was just this twilight that just lasted forever with a combination of indirect, out of the frame streetlights. But to me, it was the, you know, the simple repeating forms of the house, the home, you know, that shape is, to me anyway, and I think to a lot of people, it's even like the little Monopoly houses, you know, it's such a powerful symbol and it has so much associated with it, home, you know.
Yeah.
And this was the home of the poet George Mackay Brown, who lived his entire life in Orkney. And I didn't know it at the time, but just was drawn to the, you know, the starkness of it and the boats in the foreground. And then it was later that I went wandering around that I came across, and there's a plaque on the house that said it was George Mackay Brown's ancestral home.
It's gorgeous.
But, you know, I will say there's one thing I have always lamented about that image, and it's a little tight on the right hand side. There's the boat on the right, and I always wish I'd included just a little bit more space on that right hand side.
Oh, only you, Lance. No, that's just yeah. I get it.
It needs a little more breathing room there. It's, you know, it's good for the street sign and the side of the house, but it's tight on the boat.
Content aware, Phil. Sorry.
I have done that, but not on what you're seeing there.
Or you could hire a painter and have them paint the extra part. Wow, that's fair. Your point is well made, and I think this is a good place for us to sort of bring it all together. There are some things that are timeless, and choosing what is in the frame, and especially I love what you said, choosing what not to include. That's the muscle that we all need to exercise over and over, and technology should never affect that.
Yeah. Composition is as much exclusion as it is inclusion, to be sure.
The only exception I see to that, and this is weird, and I think this is why it hasn't caught on, is VR. In VR, there can be people who direct the experience, saying, I think that people should be turning to look in this direction or turning to look in that direction. But still, like that's way different. I mean, you can choose what's in your sphere or your hemisphere that you're shooting, but that's completely different than the photography we're talking about. But it's still fascinating to think about, how do you compose a hemisphere instead of a rectangle or square?
Yeah. Interesting.
Someday we might be doing that. I mean, there are people that set up 4, 6, 8 cameras at a time and take like gigapixel panos and spherical panos with night photography.
Yeah.
They're essentially doing the same thing.
Hey, are you familiar with Joe Reefer's work?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, because he's done a lot of VR stuff, and yeah,
That's fascinating. I mean, technology is always, we're just gonna do this. We are curious. We're always going to seek to improve things for whatever reason. Things are always going to change. So I look forward to seeing what is next and what advantages it brings us. It's funny, Julianne asked one question, and I'm not sure that we have the answer to this, but she said, did the Lightroom update improve the clone and heal brush? I mean, it's possible. I didn't look that close.
It's not listed in among the features.
Simple answer.
Yeah.
Too bad. Sorry, Julianne.
But there was no reason not to do it. It wasn't a process update, process version update. It's a feature update. Right. There are some performance improvements, and they redid the interface on the tone curve panel. If you use that, that's got some changes to it. But yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the other ones because they were less relevant to me. But the hue adjustment on the local adjustment, brush and gradients were great.
Julianne's reply was, darn.
Well,
sorry.
Yeah.
Well, this is good. This blog post is, I put it under the category of evergreen. There's absolutely nothing in this that won't be relevant 5 years from now. I think my favorite takeaway from tonight, my challenge to everybody who's watching, there was already some excitement in the chat about this, is how long can you go without chimping?
Yes.
How long can you go? Give it a shot. Either turn the screen off, or if you just can't handle that and you're going to hit it anyway, gaff it off. See what happens.
Well, I'm going to try it the next time, and just, if for nothing else, just to see if we still got it. It's a way, to test those brain cells.
I'm going to take that and my Mamiya 7 and my Toyo 4x5 and my old 8x10. I'm going to set them all up in a row and no chimp. I'm going to no chimp with 4 cameras at the same time.
All right.
I got to go buy some 8x10 film now.
Yeah, good luck finding it. Sadly.
Maybe I'll revive the salt process or something. I don't know.
There you go. That's another topic.
Jerry says, or shoot with film. Exactly, Jerry. That's a no chimp situation. So you win. Absolutely, man.
No doubt.
Well, thanks for writing this, Lance. Thanks for opening the vault and talking about it again.
Thanks for the awesome print. By the way.
I can't wait to see it in person. I can't wait to sign that for you. That looks so good on video. I can't imagine what it looks like in person. And I have yours in the other room. I can't get it up. It's just too far away. Well, yours doesn't have light pollution in it. I couldn't show it.
We National Parks at Night recently did an alumni print swap, and Matt and I took extra advantage and made it an instructor print swap as well. So,
yep, metal prints, so nice. So, yep, thanks, Bayfo, for doing your job so very well.
Indeed.
And thank you to everybody here who joins us on Tuesday nights. We appreciate you, every single one of you. And if you're not watching this on Tuesday night, we still appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Drop us a comment, a like, a subscribe, all the things that matter. Whatever we've earned, we appreciate it. And on Wednesday nights, jump onto Instagram, National Parks at Night. We have wonderful interviews shaping up over there. And you can join us live for that. It takes about an hour. Always stimulating to find out who's doing what, and usually friends of NPAN. So you can see people in our broader network doing interesting things with their time, either with the parks or with night photography or things related to that. Yeah. It's funny. Abby says, I have a Spartus full view camera with no mirror, no chimping. So true. Not while the film's in.
Cool.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts, Lance?
Yeah, we are a couple of months into the Milky Way season, and it's getting higher and more vertical. So go out and shoot it. We are at pretty much the end of the point where you can do a Milky Way panorama of the full arch in the sky before it gets too high to do in a single row. So as soon as it gets dark, go out, point your camera to the southeast, to the eastern sky, and get some Milky Way action going. But no chimping.
No chimping. No chipping. Do that pano without, just do it by the numbers.
That's right. Do a Milky Way pano without chimping.
Wow.
Actually, that's one thing we would not recommend, because you have to invest too much time and effort to take a chance.
Yeah. So shoot for an hour and then do it. Yeah.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Lance.
Right. Until next time, everybody. Thank you very much.
Peace. Have a great night. We miss you. And we hope to see you soon.